Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is Fett263 presents Fun with Saber Effects for Proffieboard. I think this is my 21st episode. Crazy. But I see a few people already joined in. Hey, Max, thanks for joining. Mountain Sabers, ABM Jonas, thanks for joining, guys. So tonight I have an effect I'm going to kind of build with you, just to kind of show a few more pieces of ways we can do things. But if there's any specific questions for styles, I did have a question I'm going to try to answer also related to prions. And then, some little updates on edit mode, still a lot in work. I don't have a lot to show on that just because of where I am with development. But if you have questions on anything, if you have style questions, etc., feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll try to answer everything. Hey, Shaolin Jedi, thanks for joining. So to kind of start us off, one of the questions that seems to pop up a lot more recently is the use of prions. So actually, I might knock that out. I don't remember specifically who was asking. There was a couple questions in some of the Facebook groups about editing prions, and etc. So just going to kind of show that really quickly. The crash course videos actually cover that pretty well on my channel. So if you're looking for more in depth than what I'm going to do tonight, in the playlists on my channel, there is the tutorials it's for OS4, but these prions were actually developed in OS4, most of them. The syntax and everything is the same, but if you check out the ProffiOS4 tutorials on my channel, that'll go more in depth. But since it's been something that's come up, hey Kim, thanks for joining. I'll just show real quick. So there's going to be a few, I've spoken about this a few times on previous episodes. The style editor still doesn't do all the OS 5.7 stuff. Primarily, that's going to be your on-demand battery level, the power save, and a few other things. They're not in editor, but so for our purposes, I'm going to take styles without that. If you chose styles that have some of the effects and some of the features that aren't there, you'll get an error message in style editor. But this is more just to kind of give people where to look. Hey, Brian. Hey, Tom. Thanks for joining, guys. So this will just be really kind of a quick just touch on it, just because I've seen a few questions about it recently. Hopefully some of those people with the questions have joined in. I'm just going to grab a quick style here. Actually, I already tested this one out. So you have your prion effects. So now by default, all the prions, I put timings in them. And if you click that little question mark, you can see most of them are 8,000 milliseconds. That just happened to be the prion file that Jesse made for me forever ago that I use all the time. Is 8,000 milliseconds. That's why most of them are timed out that way. Some of the others do have specific timings, but it should say what the default is. So like the 2400, 800. What those timings are is they're the combined time that the transition effect will run. So if you want to change that time, you'll just do it this way. So I'm going to go down, get my style. It's in my clipboard, so I can close this up. And then we'll go here. I don't need that. And we're just going to paste it. Submit. And now this is the actual prion effect. So this was the overload one. So it kind of builds up energy. And again, this one was timed out at 8,000 milliseconds. So the whole animation will run for that time and then go away. Now, if your prion file is a little bit longer, you'll extend it. If your prion.wave is a little bit shorter, you'll shrink it. But almost all prion effects are going to be at the very end of the style. So you're looking for the effect type prion, which is all the way down here. So then we'll just back up to this transition effect that's running it. Now this one will have a few steps. So this transition effect L is what runs the prion. And then all you're going to do is each of these transitions and make it up. Now some of them have even more transitions. So like the absorb, the infinity stone one, those actually have like multiple steps through them. This one I think has like 2 or 3 steps. But the transitions themselves all have timing in milliseconds. So if you wanted to shrink it, you would just reduce the combined. So 8,000 milliseconds is through all the transitions. You could reduce, the different steps. So you'd reduce to 2,000 here. You can reduce to 2950 here on this fade. You can reduce to 3,000 on this fade. And then there should be a boing at the very end, which is only 1,000 milliseconds. And those transitions, so those 4 transitions all put together is what comes out to just about that 8,000 milliseconds. Now, there's about 50 milliseconds left off. in the total. So it's always just kind of a rough number. So it's not, even though it says 8,000, that's rough estimate. But that's how you deal with transitions, and you can edit them. And again, if you're looking in the complete style, so if I have a complete style up, you're just looking, if you're doing it by hand, you're going to look for the final transition effect. Now, some of the newer styles with the, you'll get the end of the style will have the power save. It'll have the on-demand battery level. Like those might actually be underneath it. It depends on which ones you pick. But most prion effects are going to be at the very end of the style. So, and then it's just all the TR signifies the transition, and the timings are what you get changed. So hopefully that helps the people who had questions. Hey, a few more people joined. Hey, Kendall Hall. Thanks for joining. So tonight, if you have questions, of course, drop them in the chat. Tonight, I was going to focus on kind of a concept. I've slowly built this, but I haven't had time to do a ton of messing with it. And then this is actually something, there's a few pieces of this that I'm working on for OS 6 that obviously won't be in this, but this is kind of something I was chasing. So I'm going to use it as an opportunity to show a few more functions. Now, some of these I have shown in the past, but not necessarily all together like this. So just, I was looking for ideas on what I can kind of show in terms of effects to, help everybody out. So I figure we'll walk through this kind of slowly. And then, oh, there's a question from Shaolin Jedi on Prion. Hang on one sec. Pretty soon, is there a way to stretch out the Prion to be bigger? Yeah. So in most of the Prions, they're using either a smooth step or a bump. Actually, I think I still have this up. We can show that real easy. So here we go. So what we're looking for is the actual bump size. So this one here. So the overload is meant to start small and then grow, but you can change all the sizes, and with pretty much anything that's going to be, and this actually will be shown in the effect we're going to work on anyway. But anything that has just a section of the blade is either going to be a bump or a smooth step, and those are shapes, and they have parameters in them. So we will go, let's go down, grab it down here. So what you're going to do is find your effect. So this should be the prion. Yep, that's the prion. So then you're looking for, if you want to change the size of it, you're going to look for the shapes that make it up. So now we'll do, the first step is this bump, and it is pretty small and pretty tight. Resize my box. Oh yeah, good point. I can do that. And let me hide this. Thanks, Brian. Sometimes I forget what's going on the screen to my left. But yeah, so the bump is going to be where you're going to resize it, Shaolin Jedi. So if you need to come up, you can go up as big as you want. So we'll just increase this from 4,000 to 10,000, and you can also slide where the bump is. Now with bumps, you don't want to move them too high, because a bump is obviously, it's a shape, so it'll have a space behind it. If you stretch it out too far, but so we can just edit this, move it up a little bit, but I wouldn't move a bump up too high. But yeah, you can stretch this out. With bumps, you'll typically increase the second number mostly. You can move the first number a little bit, and then submit that, and then there'll be more bumps because there's stages. So in this bump here, so if we're at 10,000 for that one, the second bump will grow. We'll keep it as 1,000, but this one will go to like 12. And then we'll find the final bump, which is here, and that was set for 6,000. And then we can take that up. And these numbers you'll obviously play around with to get it. So then that should be good there. So now if we just go to this effect, oops, I went too far. And we do prion now. So you'll see it'll take up a lot more of the blade. And obviously if your blade is sit in deeper, then that would let you get that effect. But anything with the shape is obviously editable, and just knowing what parameters to change. So primarily you'll change with the bump, you'll change the second number. With the smooth step, you can slide a smooth step. I don't think I'm going to show smooth step today, but a smooth step is actually just starts at either end of the hilt and slides, so you can move the first number if you needed to. But it's just adjusting those numbers and finding what works right. But let's see. Let me catch back up with the chat. Actually, we got some other things. Oh, the style box. I don't know how to do that, Brian. I would have. Hopefully, it's showing enough for you guys. Let's see. Okay, I'm glad. Shalin. Let's see. Ignition sound. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So the I saw this question pop up, and Brian's answered it. Yeah. Obi Rob Kenobi did the wavelength function. Somebody asked me this someplace. Man, my memory's going. But yeah, I think if he submits a pull request for that, it's expected to come. I didn't even know that. Look at that. I'm learning new stuff. There you go, Brian. Thanks. No idea that worked. Cool. That must be somewhat new. I don't remember that. But awesome. Yeah, so so that you can set up your prions, your ignition, your retraction, and other effects to actually run by the length of the wave file. I think that I had asked Obi, and Brian worked with Obi Rob, or he communicated with him early on, and I know he uses the fork, so he would actually know better. But I had private messaged Obi Rob a little while back, and I think he's going to submit it. I just haven't seen any submit. So if he submits the pull request, which is a pull request, if you're not familiar on GitHub, is just saying you built something for the OS, you submit a request to have that then merged into the OS as a new feature as part of the main OS. That's what he's basically working on. Is if Obi Rob Kenobi gets that added in as a pull request, then I think it would be part of OS 6. He missed OS 5 with it, and then I think he took it. I don't know if he ever submitted the pull request officially, but he was working on it and getting it updated. So that's where that was. Last I heard, but again, Brian might actually have some insider info on that. Oh, it's not new? Man, I'm just not paying attention to this stuff then. Well, for those who didn't see me do it because this box was in the way, Brian pointed out I can actually change the size of this box just by grabbing the corner here. It's new to me, but that makes it a little easier. But all right. So hopefully that answered the prion size question, and the timings is all figured out. So let's go in here. If you have other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. So what I'm going after, and this is kind of a loose interpretation, is kind of like a Tesla coil type thing. So what I wanted to do is have like the tip of your saber be like the source of energy, and then I want to have the electricity dancing along the blade. Kind of like if you know the Tesla coil and it has all the sparks shooting all over it. It was kind of just something I saw in a video someplace, and I got to thinking about it. So I'm going to use that kind of concept to show some of the functions and how you can put them together to make something like that possible. So that's what we're going to build today. I don't have it on my Saber because I'm right in the middle of another piece of edit mode that I have working just about perfect, but I don't want to change anything. So I won't show that on my Saber, but I'll show you guys in this screen. So what we're starting with, we talked about it, a bump at the end of the Saber using an alpha. I'm going to leave the blade black just so we can see the effects we're doing. So now this is meant to be the top of the coil or the source of the energy. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add another layer. And this is going to, I know I've spoken about it in the past, but it's been a little while. But what I'm going to do is we're going to add another, I put that there. Let me go here. We're going to add another alpha layer. And this is going to be the start of the actual light, electricity dancing along the blade. And we're going to start simple and build up on it. So I'm going to leave it as white, and I'm going to put another bump. And let's put this one not quite mid blade. Oops, we need another 0. And we'll keep the sizes at 10,000 for now for everything. And then let's submit that. All right, so that's one bump. But what we're going to want, obviously, we're going to want more than one because it's not usually just one strike that's hitting. So what I'm going to do is there's a couple ways to do it. So we can keep adding different alpha layers if you want. But if you actually just want to keep the same size, and then have it in different places, we can actually layer the functions. And this is a little bit older. It's been a little while since I've shown it. But what I'm going to do is I'll use the editor to show, but you can do it by hand. So this here, this alpha function is a bump right now. What we're going to do is I'm actually going to grab the layer functions, and it's going to drop some other stuff in. So it just put bumps at the beginning and end. I don't want those. But it lets you, layer functions lets you take a few bumps together as one layer. So let's go edit this guy back. So this, we're going to have 2 bumps now. I'm going to move this one. Let's do this one at about 10,000. I'm going to resize the second to 10,000 also. And then we'll put this guy, I think we had him around 20. And again, I'm going to start at 10,000 with everything. So now what we get is so this, the top layer is here. So this is that top layer. That's just the source. And then we're going to have these 2 bumps. And right now they don't look very impressive, but they're going to be, when we're done, those are going to be what dance along the blade. So we're going to leave the top. So the reason we're separating these, I mean, you could technically join them together, but what we're going to do is have these doing some more action than this. This will stay kind of static. So now what we want is let's get a little bit of action into the actual color. So the color itself, just a static white, isn't so good. So I'm going to, one of the ways to do kind of a good electricity is obviously random, and the random per LED flicker is something that I usually use for that. Now, again, it's going to drop its own colors in. I'm going to go after, let's see, let's do, I like silvers. Oops, I'm not editing. I like silvers with electricity, a little more than just white, which adds a little bit of a blue hue. It's more of a personal taste, but I usually try to get something a little more blue leaning. So that'll be the first color. And then we'll just go white for the second for now. Let's see how that looks. So now that gives us a little bit of activity. And obviously you can keep layering in more stuff. So in terms of like, obviously in previous episodes, I can change any of these colors out to do even more action. You can, go really crazy, but in order to not spend just an hour designing the color, I'm going to stay a little simple with the random per LED flicker. And then what we're going to do in the second group, so these ones are going to dance. So because they're dancing, I want them to be a little bit less, the size I'm not worried about. I don't want them as bright. So I'm not going to go full white as the secondary color, but I'm going to use the random per LED again here. So let's put a random per LED in there. And what we're going to do is I'm going to use a little bit lower silver value. So let's just do like not too much difference for here. And then for the second color, instead of going full white, we'll go with kind of a 3/4 white. So we'll do like, so that should just be a little bit dimmer than the main. Yeah, it might be a little closer. We might pull that down a little more. But now I've got some action in terms of the source of electricity and then this, but obviously it's not doing anything. So now we're going to start really dealing with functions and what they can do. And when it comes to random stuff, one of the better functions is the slow noise function. Now you can use brown noise as well, but slow noise can get you, really get some activity there. It was actually specifically built for lightning block in OS 4. So of course it lends itself to electricity. So what we're going to do first is what we want to have is I want to get some motion on these 2 bumps because they're supposed to dance along the blade. So I'm going to take the first value in their first bump. So the bump value, the first value is the location. Instead of it being fixed, we're going to put in we want to put in slow noise. But what we want to do, now let's just go full slow noise on this. All right. And we'll leave it at 1,000. So the speed of slow noise is how often it's going to randomly generate something. So now if we take a peek back at this, so that one's going to jump, and it's just random. It's randomly jumping around, which already looks pretty good. But it's kind of a little too fixed to be electricity. So you don't always get like a full grab of a spark. So we're going to change the second value. We're also going to set it up to be a slow noise, but we're going to scale this one because we don't want it to go full blade on us. So the bump width in that first guy, I'm going to go here. I'm going to first drop a scale. Now scale drops a sine in. You could use sine, but sine just goes up and down, and it gets a little bit repetitive, so you can see that. So to get, again, electricity looking, let's swap out the sine for the slow noise. And let's have that slow noise actually go a little bit faster with its randomness. So I'm going to pump this up. And then we're going to put, the reason we're using the scale is I want to limit, so I don't care where it jumps on the blade, but I do want to limit the size it gets. Because we're using slow noise and it generates randomly any number, I want to limit what it can do. So I'm going to leave it for 0. 4,000 might be too small. We were in the 10,000, so let's leave it at 10 for now. Submit. So now what we should get is I should get that first guy randomly jumping all over the place and also going in and out. And because we set its possible size to 0, it'll actually disappear at times. All right, so we got one guy looking pretty good. Hey, Chet, thanks for joining. Hey, Smooth Jazz Family. Sorry, guys, I wasn't looking at the chat for a little bit there. But now I got to move that second bump. That second bump isn't looking as impressive as the first, so we're going to do similar here, but we don't want them to work in unison, so we're going to do it a little differently. So this one, I'm going to put a scale on the actual location as well. And this is all just kind of trial and error. You can mess around and see what you like. Let's put the slow noise in, and let's make this one really erratic. And then I want to limit this one. I'm going to make sure it doesn't get its all the way to either end. So we'll do like 8,000 for one end, and we will do 28,000 at the other end. And I'm just picking kind of random numbers. Now let's take a peek at how that looks. That's pretty good, but that one, we didn't change his size, so he's going, while he's going nicely, we got to fix that size going. So now we'll put a scale on this again. Because of size, you always want to scale because it could generate full size. It'll look weird, so we want to limit the size of this one. And again, we'll swap the sine out for another slow noise. And then here, let's go even more speed. This actually might be really crazy looking. And then we're going to limit your size. I like the 0, but we'll let you also go to 10,000, but you're going to change a lot faster. And then that should be good. So now you've got some real activity there. Now, I might reduce the size a little. Actually, I think it might be the brightness that's bugging me. Let me pull these down. Okay, that might look better. That's a little better. And I might have to shrink the size. 10,000 might be getting too big. We'll pull that one down, and we'll pull this one down. Pull this one down a little smaller. So now we've got the activity, and obviously this would be something that you would layer over some kind of a base effect. You wouldn't want your base effect to have too much activity. Now you could also add more bumps in. Actually Brian said it. Yeah, they have the plasma balls too, where they get a little bit of purple. So you could change your colors to be a little more purple looking. Actually, if we swapped white for like a magenta, that might do it. Let's see what this looks like. I might not like this, but let's see if it comes out like I'm thinking it will. It should be good enough, right? Yeah. Not horrible. I think the magenta might be too bright for it. But you can just easily get put together the colors you wanted. But the idea was more to have that kind of an effect. And obviously this would be something you'd layer on top. Mountain Sabers, it could be lightning block. Essentially, Lightning Block does use slow noise. Lightning Block, the ones out of my library, actually have a few other factors built into them, which you could easily build. But my Lightning Block has actually has an intensity control, which uses twist. So you can actually, if you turn your hilt, you can actually increase and decrease that the size of that concentration of the lightning. And then it also uses your blade angle to center it. So it's got a lot more going on than just the slow noise. But if you just wanted like random kind of lighting effects, you can easily drop the slow noise in a lot of places, and it'll do a lot of different things. And another way we can actually use slow noise, just to top it all off, is let's go here. I'm going to swap out just black. Let's go with a mix. So a mix is another way to use a function to do something with your colors. So let's pick two colors. Let's see, I think I'm still in the magenta family. I think I left that. So let's go with something maybe, magenta looks okay against blues. Do a deep sky blue. Let's see what that looks like. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to slow noise here. And let's leave it at that speed. And not as good as it could be. I think we got to swap these back to a whitish. And I got to get a little more differentiation between these colors. Let's get maybe steel blue instead. Yeah, steel blue and blue. I don't think there's a difference there. That might be nicer looking. So now you get the underlying mix of your base color is actually also using slow noise, so it's randomly generating. So like you have your normal flicker, you have your random flicker, or audio flicker, which is by the sound. You have your random flicker, which is technically random, but you can also use slow noise because you can make it even more erratic. The other thing we could do technically that's nice about something like the mix is we can actually add to this function. Let's make this function into a smooth step. And let's see, we'll let it use its speed for the top, and then we'll give it, let's give it a little bit of room to breathe. So we'll give it like a 6,000 fade. That'll look pretty interesting. Actually, we have everything happening from the tip, so that works. So now, let's make it stand up a little bit more. This is only just to show what's actually happening. That I wouldn't do this necessarily. But this way you can see, by putting that smooth step, giving it a slow noise control, you can also have the energy coming from the top. Now I would do it in a more complementary color, like maybe Dodger blue, or the deep sky blue wasn't too bad. But now what's going to happen is that blue is going to pull itself down across it. So you can basically have, whatever you want, but that slow noise giving you that random capability, and the fact that you can speed it up lets you do a lot of different stuff with it. But I do have a bunch of other things kind of related. So this Tesla coil idea is something I've been playing with, that's obviously just the base. That's this guy here. Oops, I didn't grab, and let me. So the lighting effect with the tip is something that I've got in mind for the library. It's not going to be there yet. It'll be coming, but I actually have a bunch of other stuff that's going to be part of the library update when I get around to it. This is just one of the things that I was kind of hoping to get built out. But what I'm going to be looking to do is add some more effects into the library that you can just kind of pick and choose with other effects. But I wanted to give this opportunity to kind of show that. Let's see. Oh, I missed some questions. Sorry. Hey, Link the Jedi. Who else joined us? Hey, Royal Roy. Thanks for joining. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, so, yep, yeah, I do a lot of my work in, I only have, my screen share is only for the web browser. I don't have it. But typically, I actually, when I get something working nicely, I'll actually end up taking the code, I paste it in a text file, and I kind of leave it aside. I usually tinker with these quite a bit, and I ultimately always test on the blade. So sometimes you have some of these effects look awesome in the editor. You load them up on your blade, and since this is just an emulator, it doesn't match perfect, and then you're going to go in and fine tune it. Other times, stuff that doesn't look as impressive in the editor, you load it on the Saber, and all of a sudden it looks great. So you always, after you're done building something, have it working pretty nicely in the editor, you do want to actually test it on your Saber. Some of the effects, and sometimes the colors don't always translate direct. And there's a few effects that, in particularly when you're dealing with random stuff, end up just being not good mixes with each other. Like, even though it might look good in the editor, sometimes if you have like a white with other colors, or like a silver on a blue, it doesn't stand up as much as you like. So test everything out on your Saber. But so that's something, it'll be added to the library eventually, but if you want to play around, it was pretty easy to put together. Let's see. Oh yeah, Kyber Tech. Yeah, I mean, we could swap back to the red for red, white, and blue pretty easily. Get some craziness going. And again, you don't have to use the base plate being like this. I just wanted to throw that in because mix lets you do so. Alpha layer lets you do shapes and functions, and mix lets you do shape and functions. Essentially, they're very similar. The difference is alpha layer. An alpha layer can't be your base layer. You have to have something under it, even if it's black, just because of how transparency works. But it's one color or a single effect. What mix does is it uses the function to swap between the two effects, and you can have it do a lot of different things. But I mean, you can do anything you want with these. Let's see, Link the Jedi, Dodger Blue. I mean, you can swap colors pretty easily if you pull something from the library. So the biggest thing with the different colors, which I forget Dodger Blue, I think it's closer to Deep Sky Blue. Let's grab something here. I'm going to grab a simple one to start, but editing, you can always edit. So the reason I have these 8 colors set up, except for the Fallen Order, I added a couple, is just how I built this library. So what the library is doing is actually a ton of different JavaScript that takes the style and all the effects and everything and puts them together. And I have to create a list of the alt colors, so what colors go with what colors to make the effects look right. So I had to limit myself to 8. So that's why it's pretty much always the same 8, except for a few rare instances. But if you grab, I'm going to say Deep Sky Blue might be closer. If we just grab this and then go into the editor, I think we're done with this one. So I'll use this. And then, oops, did I not? I didn't grab the whole thing, huh? Should be better. And then we would go in, and you can just swap the colors. Oh, I must have grabbed so we can swap here. That might actually, yeah, that might be too dim. I feel like there's probably some green in those. So the big piece is, oops, that's too high. Finding why is my keyboard not responding? Okay. Now my keyboard decided not to work. And now it works at the end. What's going on? But you would just want to find the alt colors that would kind of go with it. So like this one, you probably pull this up a little bit. What's the deal here? I'm getting lag on my keyboard. And then here, I'll pull a little bit more in. How the hell do I have lag on the keyboard? All right, there we go. So that would kind of be getting into that Dodger Blue color, but you can swap colors in. If you haven't seen, though, with edit mode coming, you're going to be able to do any color on any effects that you want. So kind of the whole the library itself, the concept of these 8 base colors is actually going to change dramatically with OS 6. It kind of actually with all the colors is going to be a pretty big shift in how it's all handled now. So there'll be a lot more possibility. But with what exists now, you can add the Dodger Blue in. I wouldn't build it into the library. more out of just because actually the library is actually going to move away from base colors. It's moving into the color editing done on the Saber. That's what essentially edit mode is chasing after. Is it's going to make the need to actually pick this ahead of time a little bit obsolete. But more to come on that, obviously. Let's see. So where were we? Let me catch up with the rest of this chat here. Hey, BK, thanks for joining. Oh, yeah. I mean, yes, if you have specific colors that you're looking for and they're not listed colors, you can always use this color chooser here and find a very specific color that you wanted, and then apply it. And that would be able to handle that. Oh, you mean an eyedropper for the screen? Yeah, if you had a screen cap, you could also get the RGB value if you have like a Photoshop or something. Other cool uses for Mix. I mean, Mix can do any function works in Mix, but yeah, Mix is used a lot in my split blade styles. So a lot of that stuff's already there, but we can play with it while we have it up. So what we'll do is this Mix right here, obviously we're just using a smooth step. If you wanted, you can take Mix, and Mix takes more than 2 colors. That's something that I think gets missed. We can actually swap out this function. Let's swap this function to, what's a good one? Let's do blade angle so that your blade changes while you're moving it. And we got blue, we got a green. And then let's put, now this obviously is being emulated. Let's put a red. And so what's going to happen with this one, now the emulator is going to show this kind of just changing through all the colors. What actually will control this if you put this on your Saber is when your blade is pointing up, it's going to return red. And then when your blade is pointing straight down, it's going to return blue. And then everywhere in between, it's going to work its way here. So technically parallel would actually be this color. And if you added other colors, you're basically dividing that 180-degree range of pointing up to pointing down. I don't have that little cheat sheet that I made on this screen, but essentially you can use blade angle. You can also use twist angle. Actually, that might be a good segue to something else, but you could put a twist angle in here, and then that way, instead of being the blade angle up or down, you can actually just turn your hilt and have that change the color. We can also give it its own animation type of deal, where you can have it, if you want to be something where it kind of moves itself through the range. There's a couple ways to do it, but you could do the sign and then set your speed. Yeah, yeah, Brian. Oh, it's mix takes everything. You can take as many colors as you want and mix them through, and it combines them. It works kind of like gradient, but it's applying a function to handle it instead of breaking them into even pieces. So yeah, if we put like more colors in here, then it'll work its way through everything. Now, there's other ways to do all this kind of stuff. So let's see. Yeah, 9 pixels at the hilt for a chamber style. The rest normal within one blade. So yeah, I mean, you could. I would say if it's a real crystal chamber though, just subblade it. Makes it a lot easier, particularly if you wanted off behavior. If it's so, the reason I would guess if they have it go through the data go through the crystal chamber and shared with the main blade, setting up a subblade would actually be the best way to go about it. So, it's a single blade and they wanted to separate. I mean, you could technically do subblade on a single blade. Yeah, I mean, you can do it. You just do your math, you count your number of pixels, and then, so number of pixels out of so 9 out of however many pixels times 32,768, that would give your location. And then if it's something where you want a hard end, so what we would do is we would actually use smooth step, because smooth step would actually let you do a 0 setting. We're going to pull the sign away. Let's just do an int here. And we'll do an int here. And we're only going to need 2 colors, but we'll fix that in a minute. So we'll say, let's say it's 130 pixels, 130, so 9 pixels. I'm making that up as I go, so about 7%. So we'll do 0.07 times 32, 716. So 2293, roughly. We'll round up to 2294. And then let's set it to 0. And what 0 does is it actually makes a hard end. So then you would just have your, let's get these colors. So it's only going to show the first and second because the smooth step doesn't have the ability to use the other colors. So we can just do this here. So you could do something like that. So the math part is, so the math part was you're taking the number of pixels you want to segment separately and dividing by the total number of pixels of the blade, and that gives you the percentage, and then you use that percentage times 32,768. So I came up with about 7% when I did my rough math, but I made the numbers up, and that multiplied that, I got 2294, give or take. And then again, if you set smooth step with they call it the step width, but it's essentially the fade area to 0, it gives a hard edge. Now, if you wanted to actually have it fade into the other blade, you could, stretch that out a little bit. And obviously, the bigger number, the more the fade between the two goes. That might be a little too big. But if they want a hard edge, that's why you use smooth step, because smooth step gives you a bump will never give you a hard edge. A bump always has the gradient on the edges, but a smooth step lets you put a 0 value to actually create a hard edge between pixels. So that's how you would get that done. But yeah, you can do a whole lot. Let's see. Oh, Matt has a question. And then, yeah, if there's any others. Oh, wow. Dang. Today went fast, guys. Let's see. How would you make a Revin config? Ignites purple and then turns red. So if you wanted it through a button press, we would use the color change and use the color change direct define. That would be the easiest way. So we'll do, let me clear the board here. Let me clear the board on another one. I want to save that. The other guy, I think I had it close to what I was looking for anyway. So let's get rid of all this. So what we would do, actually, it's, I don't know why. It's in, let me build it, but it actually exists in the library. It's the dual phase capability. And there's a couple ways to handle it. But let's do the easiest one. So if you want it for a button press, we're going to do color change. What it starts purple. So I forget my combo for purple. I think it's this one. And this is super simple start. What did I do? I missed something. Oh, I forgot a transition. Let's say I had a nice long fade to that. So with color change, it's essentially if you have the color change direct. So in my library, I think I have it. Where'd it go? This must be in. Nope, that's not it. I know I wrote it somewhere. Oh, there it is. It's in the pop-up screen. This, you'll want this defined. So what this defined, I'm covering it with your message. Hang on. So this define here, color change direct. What color change direct does, you add this define to your config. And what that does is if you include a color change style like what we're building or what the library provides, when you click the color change combination, now it depends on what prop file you're using, but every time you click it, it does a single change. If you don't have that defined in, if you click your color change buttons, it goes into the wheel method. But for something like this, like the dual phase sabers, it doesn't work very well. So you'll want this first of all, the color change direct. And it is just when you load my screen, it's right here, but it's pretty straightforward. So define color change direct, all caps with underscore. Then We built this style. So then every time you click the button to do color change, it will toggle. And this has a really long fade. It's going to fade over this one 8,000 milliseconds from purple to red. And actually that's a little too long. Let's cut that down a little. And then when you click it again, you can go back to purple. So that's how you would do it. But I actually have a lot of dual phase capabilities in the library. So what we'll do is we'll go to build a dual phase. And you're going to get more options this way too. Where's dual? There it is. I went right past it. Build a dual phase. So Pull to the Darkness is an old guy that's been around forever. That was actually one of the early ones that started with the dual phase concept. But here you can build your own. So if you want to build out, so let's say we'll start with an audio flicker in purple. Let's leave it as an unstable red as the second color. And then your control method. So if you use twist control, and this is still answering Matt's question, if you use twist control, what's going to happen is it's going to be purple, and then you have to rotate your hilt 180 degrees, and it'll flip to red. But it depends on how you're starting. So if you start with your hilt inverted, then it would start red and flip to purple. So that's a little less control on it. The click to change is the version with the color change using the click to change button. So that would set up how we did it, and then you can choose your how you want it to go. So fade's usually pretty nice color cycle, but you would choose your fade and then choose your time. And this is essentially going to build it all for you. And again, the click to change is probably the easiest one because you were asking about with the button press. Your button press would be the color change combination. As long as you have that color change direct defined in there, it'll do a button press. If you have it just regular color change, you'll do the button press, but then you'll have to do a rotate of the hilt to use it. But so click to change does that exactly. That's what a dual phase. That's what the dual phase actually is the idea of having your saber start one way and change. So I do that for the Koran horn. The Pull to the Darkness was a style I designed where it starts out as Ben Saber's blue saber, and then the original one just timed itself out and turned into unstable red. But over time, we've gotten the functionality to actually make it on demand. You do have these other ones. Split personality is really random, and oscillate goes back and forth. But for what you're looking for, you probably want the click to change. And then again, you can pick any of the styles. So you have options here for the style, then obviously purple, again, the style, and obviously red. But so you can build that out and have it all run. So then you would just get this, build out all your options. I'm going to skip all that, get style. We'll put this in here. Submit it. And then starts purple. It's going to stay purple until you do click to change. Then the click to change goes, in this case, to unstable red. And then when you do click to change again, it'll go back to purple. So that would be the easiest way to do it. But color change is the function that'll handle that best. Let's see. I miss everybody else. One button. Yeah, it depends on so whatever color change control you have, Matt, if you're using SA22C or Dimitri's buttons, just see what their color change button control is, methodology. I haven't used a one button saber for since 1.3. So I'm not familiar with their props, but they should have it. So the define should work because the define is to the OS, it's not to the prop. It's a command to the actual OS. So the color change direct define in your config will still do it. You just have to figure out what that combo is on the one button. And I don't know it. Somebody in the chat might know it, but it'll still do it automatically. It's using color change. Now, if you really find that it's not working well, you could go with the twist control. In the library, again, the twist control though, it's basically just going to be when your board is facing up, it's purple. When your board is facing down so basically the USB port facing right at the ground, it'll flip itself to red. But it's based on the hilt and it's a responsive control. So if you move that hilt around while you're using Saber, it's going to go back and forth on its own. That might be what you want. If you wanted the button control, the color change is the best functionality for that. Or, I mean, you could also use multi-phase. I don't know if they've included multi-phase. Multi-phase does basically does a preset change live. So that's in my prop file. I don't know if they copied it, but that actually would swap. Of course, then you have to do two styles, two presets, one purple, one red, and toggle between them. But that's another capability. But the color change direct is your easiest method for that. Let's see. Yeah, Brian did a ton of work on his portal style. Glad we got that working. Looked really good. And he's using a bunch of other stuff in there. He's using the effect sequence and all that other stuff in there. Saber down, hold button, twist tilt. There you go. I think this might, Matt, this might be your control. Again, you got to get that define in there first. Without the define, when you do the combo, it'll actually go into the mode. And all it is in the mode, you just turn your hilt and it'll change, and then you got to press a button again to do it. But if you have color change direct defined, it should just change that color every time you do this. So cool, yeah, enjoy. Glad to help. So if there's no other questions, I got something I'm going to show you guys. It's a really early sneak peek. It is not done, but figure it's not edit mode. Edit mode is actually didn't get any questions on edit mode, so that's good. It's in development. There's actually a ton in development. I'm just in the middle of a lot of things, and Frederick's helping me obviously with a bunch of it. But I almost have too many things to show to figure out how to best show them. So I'm kind of collecting everything, getting it working. And I might just have to do like a really long demo of everything because it's growing so fast. But let me show you this stuff. Let's see, I got to set the camera. Add that to stream. Will take me away. You guys don't need to see me. Oops. Oh. Add the stream, but you do need to see me, I guess. Otherwise, you won't hear me. Hopefully, that didn't mess the sound up. All right, let's see. Here. All right. I'm not going to be able to see the chat for a second or two. So this is just something I've been toying with. It doesn't have a specific purpose built just yet. And this is all using OS 5 stuff. There's actually stuff related to this that's in development for OS 6. But if anybody wants to have some fun, I'm going to show this. I'm not going to tell you how I did it. If somebody wants to try to figure out how this got done, go ahead and play with the editor. But all the functions exist in the editor currently that make this exact thing possible. There's other stuff that's kind of the next phase of this that's in development for OS 6. And again, it's not anything fancy right now, but it's got two poles of light. And what's going to happen is as I turn my hilt, I bring those two poles of light together, and then when they touch, it kicks out energy from the center. And then if you pull them back apart, it stops. So, and then you can pull those poles all the way back. And again, this is just kind of the starting point for it. But the idea is if you get those two pieces of energy, so you have a positive and a negative to come together, you get a burst of release of that energy. And it's actually pretty sensitive. So if I just pull them apart just ever so slightly, they stop. But as soon as they touch, they release the energy. And this is only the starting point for it. But I've been messing with this kind of idea. Some of the stuff related to this, though, is in development for the new OS. So this is like kind of a foundation work. But if somebody wants to play with the editor and get this kind of working, might be a fun way to mess around with the editor and the functions and stuff. So just something I had this idea and I decided to throw it together. Oops, you guys, hopefully you're hearing me. I didn't even realize that other camera was flipped. It looks like you guys are hearing me. Cool. Let's flip to this. There we go. So, okay, looks like you heard me, yeah.
Yeah, homework. There you go, Brian. More for fun. But yeah, so that exact, all the functions in there exist currently in the editor. Some of the newer stuff that's going to be coming is that's all going to be tied to the OS 6. So there's a couple of new effects and functions in development for OS 6 that's actually going to take some of this stuff to the next level. Some of it I've actually already got kind of working. Some of it's still conceptual, but this is just something tied to it. But yeah, cool. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it kind of has a flux capacitor-like look with the energy flowing out of the middle. So I don't want to say too much because some of the related stuff, I kind of have this whole concept of package of effects, all somewhat related, that I'm trying to put together. And then some of the things I'm trying to do don't exist yet. So I have a couple styles I've been messing with to add to the OS, and actually some of them Frederick's giving me a hand with. But when it's all said and done, I've got this kind of nice thing planned out if I can get it from my head into the Saber. Let's see, newer board. In terms of the file names, it's always backwards compatible when new stuff gets added. But, and I've mentioned this in the past, as new effects get added, obviously you have more stuff. So like if you have like a font from, back in even OS 2 or 3, it's probably missing a lot of sounds that actually exist now. But all the old sounds will always work. I don't think Frederick has Frederick wants everything to be backwards compatible. So he wouldn't make it so that like your hum or your swing or your out and in all have different file names all of a sudden. But there probably will be more and more over time. And obviously with edit mode, thanks again to Brian, there's actually a whole suite of menu sounds that are coming that obviously have specific names. So those will be there. But all fonts will always be backwards compatible. Frederick, I don't think would change that. It'd make it a nightmare for everybody. But you do get new sounds, obviously, as new stuff comes out. So Lightning Block and Melt, when they were added in OS 4, those were new sounds that a lot of fonts didn't have, but now more and more font makers are including them. Obviously, a lot of the battery stuff. There's a good amount of sounds being added, but nothing changes that already existed. Yeah, I mean, everything I design will be working for the 1.5, the 2.2, and obviously when V3 comes out, the big thing with the V3, and again, I haven't seen all the specs on it, but everything that Frederick's teased is more the storage, so you'll get more on it. But the capabilities of the OS will mostly remain the same. I think the biggest thing that I saw him mention is the idea of like an MP3 playback for tracks. The V2.2 and the 1.5, their processor couldn't handle that, so that would be the only thing. But a lot of the styles and functions, I think, would carry over just fine. Let's see. Name 69. So programming is not hard. So if you're not a member of the Proffieboard support group or the open source group, join those. Let me see if I have them up here. So definitely join these groups. The manual is available, actually right here. Read through the manual. I think it's about page 27 starts it. But just familiarize yourself. You're essentially going to be editing a config, which is a text file. And then if you're not familiar with my library, it's linked in my channel. You can't see it because the chat's up. But you don't actually need to program anything. You can come into my library and actually get all the code you want, and you can customize everything, choose all your options. You just click this little get style. It's going to put a string of code together. That gets pasted in your config. Again, that's described in the manual. and then you're going to upload through Arduino. So the first time you're doing Arduino, there's a lot of videos out there. I still like the manual just because it's step by step with everything spelled out with screenshots. But if you're more of a video learner, Megtooth Sith has a great video. Kim just actually said that in the chat. And there's a few others out there that have a bunch of good videos. There's so much information, but first and foremost, join the groups, because if you have any kind of issue pop up, and this pops up with a lot of new users, sometimes it's something simple that to you seems really hard. Sometimes people just forget to click something, they set the settings wrong, they miss something, you're missing a comma. If you've never ever dealt with it, it can get frustrating. Go in the groups, particularly the support group, and then there's also an open source group. If you're having a problem, post a question, and a lot of the guys you see in the chat here are in these groups. I'm in this group, but they can help you out. One thing, if you're new to Profi, the biggest piece of advice I can give is just ask questions, and you'll get answers. Obviously, do some reading, because if you ask a question that's covered in the manual, 95% of us are going to say, "Did you read the manual?" It's not because we're trying to say, "Hey, we don't want to answer you." It's because the manual actually does a better job answering than whatever I'm about to write. But in a lot of cases, if you've read the manual, if you're having a hard time still, just post in these groups. And really, most users, once they get past that initial setup and that first upload, it's pretty straightforward going out. You might run into like a missing comma or a bracket error once in a while. But after the very first time, because just like anything, it is challenging. But after that, I think you'll be all right. Let me catch up with the chat. Sorry, I missed a few here. And then I'm probably going to sign out in a minute or two after I get y'all. Let's see. Cool, learning curve. Yeah, it looks like everybody's answering you in the chat anyway. Matt, yes, all the defines go at the top of your config. Oh, I don't have my screen share available to show you. But yes, at the very top of your config, I think it's called config top. Actually, we can look at GitHub so I get the naming right. Let's do the wiki. Config top. Yeah, I thought it was. It's been a while. But yeah, so up in the top section is where you put all your defines. So you have obviously your includes, and then right away where it says the number of blades, it says volume, all these other things. Right around these guys, the enables, you can put your optional defines in, but they're always the top section. It's called config top, so it has a if, def, end if on it. But that's basically it. Let's see. Yep. Oh, looks like you guys are faster ahead than me. Hey, you're welcome. Yeah, the library is, again, it's a good collection, but that's kind of the reason I do these live things, is to give everybody the tools to play with the editor, because that's what got me. So I probably told this story more times than you guys care to hear, but I'll say it again. I got started with Profi thanks to Megtooth. I don't know if he's still on, but and he originally he showed me the style editor and just kind of showed it to me, and then I started playing with it, and then it became extremely addictive. And over time, I started to not just change the color of stuff, but I started to play with what things did what. There was a couple. There used to be this style sharing thread on TRA. It's still there, but it's kind of gone quiet. Where I would just think of something, put it together, throw it up there, people would use it, and over time, it actually started building so many styles. I felt like I was kind of hogging that thread up, so I decided to go and build that library. But to me, the best thing about Proffieboard is the fact that you get to, if you can think of something, you can design it in the editor and come up with it. The library is a great starting point, and obviously it's grown significantly, but it's not the end-all be-all of what's possible. To me, there's still so many things that I have in my head that I haven't even brought to life yet, that it's pretty unlimited. But glad it helps, and glad everybody enjoys it. Cool. Well, I think I'm probably going to call it. I'm a couple minutes after, but no knock on my door, so I think I'm good. But we should be good next week. And if you have any questions in the interim, I did get a couple of questions, particularly related to prion. I don't mind trying to answer them. Hopefully next week I've got a few more new style ideas worked out. Any of you who want to tackle that little power combine style, go for it. If you get it sorted out, feel free to post it in the chat or keep it to yourself. If a couple people are working on them, if somebody comes up with the solution and figures it out, don't take somebody else's solution. Try to figure it out yourself. If you can't figure it out, that's okay. To me, the fun is figuring it out on your own, even if other people figure it out too. But if you're gonna look at your partner's paper, that kind of takes away the fun that I would get out of that. But thanks everybody. Thanks Mountain Sabers. Thank Brian. Meme69. Good luck with that Proffieboard when you get it. Again, biggest piece of advice: manual, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Hey, Cooper Productions, I missed you. If I missed anybody in the chat, if I missed any questions, I do apologize. Sometimes when I'm building in styles, I kind of get laser focused, but hopefully you all got a little bit out of this tonight. We'll catch you again next week, and enjoy. Have a good night.